Alrighty, and here we go. So welcome to my 5th video. This is life as a resident assistant. So I just want to start this video off by saying my life as a resident assistant at Western Michigan University is going to be different than a life as a resident assistant at Michigan State University. I just want to mention that not everything I say will be applicable and held true to universities across the state and across the country. But without further ado, let's hop into what it is like living as a resident assistant. So to begin, I kind of want to talk about the purpose of the job. What do we do? What is our foundation? Why are we here? So just to give you a little background, a resident assistant is someone who works in a residence hall. There's one resident assistant per floor. For example, my hall, Harrison Hall, we have 6 floors. There's 1 RA on each floor, so there's 6 of us total. And our purpose is to serve students in a nutshell. And we serve students through creating and building a community, being a resource to students, as well as enforcing policies. So I'll get into further detail about building community, being a resource, and enforcing policies throughout this PowerPoint. But just to reiterate, our main purpose is just to serve students. That's what RAs are for, and that's why we're here. So jumping into our job duties, this is a list of 5. It could probably be expanded, but for the sake of the video, I just have the 5 most crucial things on there. So to start, we'll look at resident connections. Every single Sunday, right? I go on my computer, I have a weekly Excel sheet that I share with my boss, and I have to report at least 6 connections that I have made, or conversations, that's probably the better word, that I have made with a resident on my floor for that week. So I log into this Excel form. I say, resident A and I had a conversation about their classes. They said it was going very well, blah, 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 blah. And then I just put what topic it was. In that case, it was school. So that is something I do every single week. It's a minimum of 6. And then we have programs and CDAs, which is once a month. The CDA is a community development activity. This is anything with a group of residents, at least 3, that you do. So an example of a CDA I had earlier this October would have been a group game of Among Us on Discord. So taking advantage of our Zoom technologies and Discord and Among Us being a app on your phone that was free, I just texted our group chat. I'm like, hey, if anyone wants to play this game, hop on. I'll be on from 7 to 8, right? So 7 of us, 6 of my residents, including myself, we played Among Us for a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. It was a cool way to meet new people, cool way to joke around. But that kind of leads us into programs. These are a little bit different because programs are geared towards the whole entire hall. So unlike a CDA of just a minimum of 3 people, a program is for every single person, first floor through 6. So you kind of look at an attendance of 20 students. An example of a program I just had was pumpkin painting with cider and donuts. I just hosted this program 2 days ago with a fellow RA named Aaliyah. And this event and how we plan these events is just picking something. It's anything you want to do. And obviously being festive to Halloween, we thought pumpkin painting would be a good fit. So you have your event, you have your idea, you submit a form for what you want to do, and then you just have to put in your resources that you need. So in our case, paint, donuts, cider. And then we went down to the lobby, we had it all set up, and we promoted it throughout the week with posters and text. And then residents were just able to come down, sit socially distant at tables, have their mask on, and just paint and be able to talk and just kind of relax a little bit. It was a lot of fun. Programs are a good way to kind of de-stress and remember hey, we're still at college. Yes, we have school and all these responsibilities, but at the end of the day, we can still just sit down and be kids and have fun. So moving into door decks and bulletin boards, these are also monthly responsibilities. So a door deck, if you're at college, I'm sure you know what it is. If you're not at college, I will explain it. At college, on your dorm room, you have your door, and right outside your door, typically you have some sort of little funny icon or craft that has your name on it, just to signal like this is this person's room. My first door deck was a watermelon. I took some green paper, cut it, red paper, layered it, put some seeds on there, and then I put their name. I taped it on their door, so that's a door deck. Bulletin board, each RA on their floor has a big bulletin board right by their elevator. And this is a way for us to share insightful information or something fun. For example, for the month of October, I did how to vote, how to register to vote, facts about voting. I thought that was very important in our current time to have something up like that and be available for students. So that's a little bit about door decks and bulletin boards. Moving into weekly desk and duty shifts. These are on obviously a per week basis. So the weekly desk shift is something us RAs are required to do. It's a part of our job. We do not get paid additional for working the desk, but it's just a check-in process and a way for students to receive packages. So the desk is open from 5 to 11 every single day. And we have a 3-hour shift. So I work 5 to 8. And during the shift, I just check residents in. I make sure they live here. I look at their ID. I'm like, okay, you're good. And then if they have any packages they want to receive, like if they order something from Amazon, they come to the front desk and that's where they pick it up. So that's what the desk shift is like. The duty shift, I am on duty every single Wednesday. And what this means is I am the RA responsible for what is going on throughout the building that night. There is a primary RA and typically a secondary RA, and it rotates each week. So every single Wednesday, I am on duty. This Wednesday, I will be primary, which means at 5 p.m., I have to pick up the phone and I will be responsible for what happens in the building from 5 p.m. till almost 9 a.m. the next morning. And this entails me walking around the building doing rounds. A round is starting at the 6th floor. I walk the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, the 1st. And I do that 3 times per night just to make sure nothing is going on, no weird activities, just checking up on the hall. I carry a second phone on me. That way, if anyone calls, I can answer and be there in a heartbeat. And lastly, I cannot leave the building. So as the RA on duty, I cannot be any further than I think it's like 30 minutes from the residence hall. And if I am leaving, I have to give someone the phone, but we're typically required, I cannot leave the building. So it is, I don't want to say difficult by any means. It's not difficult, but it's just something you have to plan around, obviously. So if you had meetings, you'd be like, oh shoot, well, I can't go, right? So it's just something to think about. And then we have your weekly staff meetings. So I have 2 bosses. I meet with one of them each week, and then it flips each week. So I guess bi-weekly. I meet with them bi-weekly, and then on the other week I visit the other one. And then we have an actual staff meeting as well. So all our RAs plus our bosses, and that's once a week. So there's 2 total meetings per week. That's a little bit about our duties. I didn't go into much detail. Sorry if that weekly staff meeting explanation was terrible. I was just listening to myself and that sounded very confusing. But just to preference it, I have boss A and I have boss B. This week I met with boss A. Next week I meet with boss B. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's move on into the job benefits, right? Yeah, okay, job benefits. What do you receive being an RA? I receive free housing and a meal plan at WMU, and that equates to roughly a little bit over $10,000 a year. Obviously, that is the big reason why most people become an RA. You get the free housing, and that's huge as a college student, as well as the free meal plan, not having to worry about buying food, making your own food. It is something to think about, as well as social connections, right? I'm surrounded by 49 students just on my floor, let alone over 500 students in the entire hall. So this allows for me to make a lot of new friends, be surrounded by a lot of different people, which is really cool. It is something it's an experience you really don't get to have too often. So I'm very grateful to be a part of it. And lastly, the biggest benefit for me is my involvement on campus. Through my RA experience, just meeting all these other students, I've learned about a lot of different opportunities. It is an amazing way to find opportunities to get involved on campus. So those are the top 3 benefits in my personal opinion. Obviously, again, the first benefit being the biggest one. That means you wouldn't do it otherwise. But let's talk about what the skills needed are to be a resident assistant. First and foremost, communication. This is because you are talking to students every single day. Your world and your job literally involves around communication. As a resident assistant, we like to say your life is your job, right? You live where you work. So just being able to talk to residents, be open with them, like, hey, like I'm not working right now. Like if you need to be like that, like I'm not on duty. Like I can give you the other RA's number, or just having that open dialogue of like, oh, like you need help, I can help you, right? Just communication in general. The second skill that is definitely needed is emotional intelligence. This is huge as an RA. I would never recommend, and actually, I'm not going to say this. I'll get to it later. Emotional intelligence is important because you deal with a lot of residents' emotions, as well as you have to manage your own. So it is very important to be empathetic, obviously, with residents, with whatever scenario they are going through. You are a resource for them. You are here for them. So when they come and talk to you, and residents do, they will open up to you and let you know anything that they want to let you know, like the biggest life stories. Like a lot of residents tend to share that because you're the person they trust. So you have to be able to balance their emotion, support them, and balance your own. And lastly, time management. This job, as I mentioned, you live where you work. It is only written down as 20 hours a week. However, I would disagree. It's a little bit more. So being able to manage all the residents' like priorities and like your responsibilities towards them, and manage your own emotional intelligence, like making sure you're okay, your mental health is okay, whether that be making sure your classes are going well, your participation in your clubs are going well, your friends are doing okay, right? Like there's a lot of things that you have to balance. It can be challenging, but you learn as you go throughout your weeks through training of like how you're going to be able to do it. And it's something you just adapt to and that you become naturally better at. So this is kind of my last slide, and this is the one I'd like to talk about a little bit more, and it's my recommendation. So what do I think about people becoming an RA? Like what would I recommend? Again, I'll look at the skills needed, right? This slide, I'm going to talk about emotional intelligence. This skill, if you can't handle your own emotions, if you are very emotionally unstable, I would not recommend being an RA. And that is because it is very difficult to carry the heavy weight of emotions from residents and then have to balance it with your own as well. So I think it is very important to have a strong connection within yourself and be aware of the emotions you face and how to manage them. Have practices for mental health, whether it be doing yoga, going to the gym, going on a run, going on a walk, you name it. Have something. That is the biggest thing. When I say look at these skills needed, check your emotional intelligence. Secondly, the time versus the reward. I said 20 hours a week. You live where you work. It goes beyond 20 hours a week. I get free housing and I get a free meal plan. I'm not going to state whether I think like that is good compensation or like bad compensation. Like, right, obviously I'm beyond grateful to be a resident assistant. However, it is something to think about for students who have off-campus jobs and live in an apartment as a sophomore. There's trade-offs. There are definitely trade-offs. So when I say time versus reward, how do you want to spend your time? Do you want to spend your time surrounded by other students, being able to build connections, help them out, be a resource, have the, like the benefit or like the satisfaction of knowing you're making a positive impact on student lives, right? Or do you want to work a different job and then come back and be done working and then have time for yourself, time to do this, time to do that, right? So there's the trade-off. And that's what you want to do. How do you want to spend your time? And what reward do you want from that? So that's the question you have to ask yourself. And lastly, know who you are. This ties into the emotional intelligence, and this ties into the skills, and this ties into the time versus reward. Being an RA, if you don't like being around people, don't be an RA. If you don't like interaction, don't be an RA. However, like, I don't even need to say however, just know who you are as a person. What do you like? And how can you apply that, right? So say one of your biggest strengths, one of the things you like the most is, let's say music, right? It's completely random, totally random, but something that definitely I've connected with residents on my floor. Not saying if you like music, become an RA, but there's ways to tie your passions into what the resident assistant job does. Let's say something you love to do is just meet new people. Boom, obviously you want to be an RA, you love meeting new people, right? That's a way for you to connect with residents as well as connect residents to other residents. So my recommendation on that is know who you are, right? Know your skills, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and then really think like, what are the pros and cons of me being a part of this position, applying for this position? And is it worth the time for the reward? And is it something I can manage? So that is my slideshow. That is it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hopefully it comes to me. Here we go. I just want to kind of wrap this up by saying, thanks for watching the video. It is short, I know, but very important. Like for students, being a resident assistant is a very unique opportunity. If you have the opportunity to do it, I highly recommend it.